Hi, and welcome to Kegels and Coffee. My name is Isabel, and I am your host. The following episode is with my dancer and very close friend, Chris Hopper. Chris grew up in Boulder, Colorado, and began studying piano at a very young age. He continues to play gigs, playing everything from jazz, funk, hip-hop to world music. And movement has always been part of his life. He was a gymnast and then a freestyle skier growing up, and today he practices and teaches parkour. Chris also has danced for my company, the Ascend Dance Project, for almost 10 years now. And one thing I love about working with him for many hours in the studio is that he feels so deeply. When we create together, we share that same sensitivity toward the music and the emotion and movement it evokes. His courage to be vulnerable is what allows him to create magic, not only on stage, but also in everyday life. Chris recently developed a young man's rite of passage group called The Next Generation of Min Tribe with his friend Garrett Brown. And if you want to learn more about that, check out the link in the bio. In our conversation, he shares what it's like to be a highly sensitive man in this world, someone who cries and expresses emotions, what that experience was like growing up, and how he hopes to help others through his own process and growth. Honestly, hearing him talk about the courage to be vulnerable reminded me of my own fears as I'm getting this podcast started. It's scary, and yet, as someone who longs to share and connect, whether through dance or words, it almost feels like I have no choice. The desire is stronger than my fear. Through his stories, Chris shines some light onto the darker corners and reminds us to be our true, authentic self. No, seriously, what am I doing with my life?
How did that come across? Did they hear me?
I feel like I'm losing my fucking mind.
You're messed up.
I need to just Netflix and chill.
Like, I'm gonna meditate like a badass.
It's just like this psychotic break, and then I get my period, and I'm like, oh, it was just your period again.
Am I the only one feeling this crazy? Hey, Chris, do you need more props? Are you comfortable?
I can't believe how comfy I am. I never thought recording a podcast would be this comfortable.
That's awesome.
You got a good setup here as well.
I love it. I know, some pillows and some blankets, and we're good to go.
And a cute little
cute little puppy dog, Eenie. She's like all cuddled in there. We're drinking some coffee. We have not done our kegels.
Oh, can men do kegels?
Men,
oh, yeah, we can.
Yes, you can.
All right, everybody do them.
Okay, here we go. Yeah, I mean, the most I've actually done kegels, if you want to call them that, we don't call it that in Kundalini yoga, but
right.
That's basically where I have tapped into the contraction of the pelvic floor. But anyways, I'm so excited and happy to have you here today, and
thank you,
for being here.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
So I want to dive right into the first thought that I had about our episode, and that was, I have known you now for quite some time, and I have experienced your vulnerability, your sensitivity, and your willingness to open, whether it is emotionally as a friend or on stage as a dancer. In any case, I'm curious because I am also a very sensitive human being, and I feel very deeply. And it comes with its, pros and cons and detriments and beauty. But I'm a woman. I get away with something that I have the impression men in general in this world, especially in some countries, maybe more than in other countries, US, I feel like is a little more intense in that sense as far as like men being, not supposed to be vulnerable or, sensitive and showing emotion. I'm curious what that was like growing up as a little child, as a teenager, and now as a young man, to be a sensitive man in this society.
A young 33-year-old man at this point.
That's young. What are you talking about?
It is. I'm so youthful. Yeah, well, gosh, it's not easy.
Yeah.
It's a gift. It's a very challenging gift in the world. As I really don't think it's as different probably as our society that likes to differentiate male, female, masculine, feminine. I don't think it's different. I think what makes it the most different is the fact that we ascribe like women are the emotional ones. Mm-hmm. This whole definition of men don't feel emotion. But as humans, we all have hearts. We all have emotional bodies. So therefore we feel. It doesn't matter whether you have a dick or a vagina, you have a heart and we all feel. So, but I think there is a subtlety level to being an empath, which we both are, and a highly sensitive human. So what that looked like for me as a kid was, gosh, in my youthful innocence up until about 5th grade, I was mostly really free. And that meant I had an incredible amount of energy, but I was always rooted in my heart. So I remember this first experience when I was in 2nd grade, and it was when I noticed like a slight difference in my capacity for empathy, because I had just changed schools and there was this kid who really loved, Power Rangers. And for my first day out at recess, first recess, I noticed all the kids were like actually physically pushing this kid, tripping him, knocking him down. And they're like, Power Rangers is so stupid. And, they're just like bullying him very intensely because he liked Power Rangers. And of course, kids are very intelligent. So I observed the dynamic and I knew I don't want to be the bullied kid. I'm at a new school. So what did I do? I went and bullied this kid. I joined in so that I would fit with the crowd and not be the bullied one. Well, then, of course, I felt absolutely horrible. And I to this day, like I will never forget Michael. I hold this child, well, he's my age, but I hold this human in my heart always, because I felt so bad about what I did. And then that led to me apologizing to him and trying to be his friend, but I would never do it in front of other kids.
Right.
Which in its own way was probably more confusing for him.
Yeah, but those are the dynamics of being young and trying to belong and trying to fit in. It is so difficult. It is really difficult to hold your own ground because it feels frightening.
Yeah, absolutely.
It feels so frightening to have to, confront the consequences of, a whole group turning against you, especially when you're young, because you are just getting started in life and you are trying to find, where you belong and what group you belong to or who are your friends. And even the fact that you did feel bad and that you apologized, I think is already huge. I don't think that a lot of people really reflect on their shitty behaviors. There's certainly some people, I'm pretty sure there's not much reflection.
Yeah, I think that
possibly
if humans
our
did...
ex-president, I don't know. Just throwing it out there. Just totally.
Possibly maybe all of the presidents.
Maybe. No, let's not go that far.
I think that if people did, then we would be living in a different world. But that's not to say anybody, whether you're sensitive or have been a bully most of your life, it's not a judgment. It's not to say anybody's right or wrong. Right. Because we are all, in a sense, I mean, I don't really believe in, if we're going to claim our power, we can't be victims. Mm-hmm. But to use the word right now, we're all victims to our circumstance, especially as children, right?
Right.
But that said, in that moment, I did observe, like, I was the only kid going out of my way
and
to make amends.
Yeah, absolutely.
And even I remember there were times where all the other kids would walk off and I would be the one to pick him up, even though I'd just like help trip him or whatever. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I'd be the one to be like, are you okay? Because I just didn't feel okay. It just felt so wrong. Like, how can you hurt another human and then just stand up and walk away?
It is so interesting to me that a good act of kindness, which was you going to this child and like apologizing, is something that you would have to be afraid of showing publicly or scared of showing publicly. That in and of itself, right, it seems so wrong, and it happens every day that somebody that's actually being kind, that's actually being nice, especially at a young age, but any age really, should be scared about people's judgment when like it should be the other way around. Like shame on you for being a bully or an asshole or disrespectful toward anyone. And, you know, good on you. Applauso, ole, if you are actually being a kind human being. And that in and of itself just seems so crunk.
Yep. I know it's crazy. But, you know, I will tell you sort of since this is directly the theme that we're talking about.
Right. Tell me.
There was not a girl that was part of that crowd of bullies.
Yes. So that actually did lead me to my next thing is how I am expected to be more sensitive. I'm expected to be more vulnerable, more emotional, right, as a woman or a girl. Do you feel like people's reaction to you crying or showing emotion at any age was difficult for you?
Yeah. That is a deep question because I learned how to shut off my emotions like most men. So even though I know and I have done the work to stay connected to my heart and to have the courage to be vulnerable, it really takes extra courage after what we go through. Everybody goes through in this society of, especially as men, being given this message that the only emotions you can feel or emotion is anger, you know, like anger and joy and ultra drive, you know? So somehow that message gets implanted at a very early age. And I don't know if it's through sports, you know, I was like most boys going to play basketball and soccer and baseball. So I know it's definitely a strong message in the athletic communities. But yeah, as I said earlier on in this, how right around 5th grade was when I noticed that was when I really started shutting off. So the way I feel received, the way I've been received in my vulnerability really was not good. It was a reception such that it taught me to shut it off.
Yep.
You know? But thank the Lordy that I have friends like you and that I have a courageous heart and I take that risk because why do we shut off? Because I got wounded. Because somebody was like, dude, you're being gay. You're being a pussy.
Yeah.
Like, man up, you know, quit your crying and get back out on the field. Whatever it is, these things, especially to a sensitive, but I don't even like making that distinction, honestly. Everybody is sensitive and that hurts and it hurts.
Yeah.
And so we put up a mask so that we don't have to experience that pain again. And that is where that courage to be vulnerable is. It's the willingness to be like, okay, I'm going to take a risk and I'm going to show my pain right now. I'm going to show my sadness or my hurt and take the risk that this person's going to call me a pussy or whatever, you know?
Right, right.
Yep.
Oh, that's beautiful. Everything you just said resonated so much. And hearing
It's like making me all emotional.
Oh, I know. And just hearing you say those words like man up and get back into the field, like made my heart just like contract. My entire chest just like, I felt like I got nauseous there for a second because, those are the moments that mark us. And those are the moments that hurt us that later in life, we work through, whether it is through friends or therapy or mentors or spiritual guides that we have, whatever medicine yours is. But that's what we end up going back to. Like with my therapist right now, I can't tell you how many little Isabels I've been visiting in the last year. Oh, the one that feels really lost and the one that doesn't feel like she belongs anywhere and the one that really just wants unconditional love, and like you get to meet them and it's so crazy when, like I first started therapy, I was like, oh, this whole childhood bullshit. Like, I don't know. And, you just start blaming your parents on, for everything, which I don't really believe in. Like, yeah, they've, done some things that might have not been perfect, but no parent is, and being a parent is hard. But then it becomes actually less about your parents and actually more about just your own work. Like, what can I do, right? Like, how can I grow? And with that, being a little more empathetic again, forgiving people that have hurt you or people that have not treated you well. So this is actually a perfect segue. I'm so, so excited to talk about your work with children. And as you just mentioned, your own process, I'd love to hear, I'm curious if there was like a turning point. And then my other big question is how and when did you start learning this is something I want to share, especially with other young men? And then, you can talk more about like the age groups that you work with too.
Yeah. Well, I kind of want to start with the second question first.
Perfect. Love it.
Which is, fortunately, there are always beautiful hearts in the world. We all know it. There's like all those teachers you don't really give a shit about, and all those adults that are just, like, wow, the Charlie Brown, wah, 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 wah. And then there are people like one of my gymnastics coaches. Actually, two of my gymnastics coaches were just two incredible males with hearts. They were passionate about what they did, and they exemplified to me something beautiful that inspired me to want to be that, which was they worked with kids. They were teaching incredible skills. Like, for me, becoming a gymnast was the most empowering thing ever. To be able to move my body so freely, to feel strong, to feel flexible. Like, there's nothing quite as liberating, in this physical incarnation.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, than feeling so free in the body.
Yeah.
As you know very well.
Yeah. As you were speaking, I was relating through my own methods, which is like climbing and dancing. And it's like that combination of strength, flexibility, grace, efficiency, body awareness, range of motion, and like just like, full on 3-dimensional movement all over the place. It's like so all encompassing. It's really satisfying.
It is so satisfying.
I know, as you were speaking, I was like feeling it.
I get this.
I was like, yes, I'm feeling so good.
And, we get to go upside down because we dance on a climbing wall.
Right.
And that was another thing. Like, when you learn to do a backflip and just like beginning to develop that as you said, 3-dimensional, but like in every direction awareness.
Yeah.
It's amazing when you can be flipping yourself in any direction and have a sense of like, I know I need to pull my knees in right now so that I can land properly. And like, where the ground is.
That's like a whole nother level. Because at the climbing wall, yeah, you do some dynamic movement, but like completely catching air is like it's whole other, I feel like, just animal. It's so cool. And I just want to brag for one hot second, because I always tell this to all my friends that haven't met you yet, that you're just a badass skier. And so when they ask me like, what does he actually do when he does like the jumps? I'm like, he just like flips like so many times and twists so many times. And I don't know any of the words. Like, I have no idea. But tell me one more time your coolest trick.
Okay. Well, I am a badass skier, first of all. Just going to claim that. But not even close to the evolution of the sport. Holy crap, that's insane.
Yeah.
What these people are doing now.
I bet.
But for my era of freestyle skier, my two favorite tricks were a backflip with my skis crossed and a cork 7, which is an off-axis 720. So it's like your body goes sideways in the air. You're not actually vertical. You don't go, feet don't go straight over the head.
Straight over the head, okay.
But they come up to the side sort of at a diagonal over the shoulder.
Cool. That's why it's
while
called.
You're spinning.
Oh, cool.
And with skis crossed. And I could do that on the mogul course.
Whoa.
Also very empowering.
That's so cool.
Yep. And took a lot of
training,
falls and fails and courage.
Scary.
Yep.
Yeah. So so there was this person or two two coaches that encouraged you
Yep.
and inspired you. That is, and that was at what age?
So those were sort of spread out from about age 10 to 13 or 14.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's nice.
Yep.
That's wonderful.
And then there were also a couple teachers, you know? I can think of at least a teacher in elementary school, middle school, and high school, you know, that really inspired me in that same way where I'm like, this human has qualities and ways of acting in the world that I aspire to be.
And these people also inspired you not to only, you know, feel empowered and be vulnerable and passionate, but they inspired you, as it sounds like to me, also to possibly work with children.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So that's where that started. And then that brings me to the first question. They're very related because I graduated high school and, you know, actually I have to backtrack a tiny bit because when we are being conditioned in the growing up process and disconnecting, learning to suppress our emotions, we're disconnecting from our natural guidance. And so all of us know this of what it's like to succumb to the general narrative and story of how a life should be mapped out.
Right.
And so by the time I was in high school, I was already feeling so repressed in my authentic self that I was really confused about life. And I didn't want to go to college. I knew that, but it was the thing to do.
Right.
So what did I do? Well, I went to college. And that was the first time in my life where I truly was depressed.
Wow.
And I'm a very energetic, happy, loving, just like exuberant and excited about life human.
Oh, I can confirm that.
And so to be depressed and just, I mean, I've experienced much deeper suicidal thoughts since that time. But for me at that time, having even contemplations of like, is life even worth living?
Wow.
Was a really big deal for me.
Yes.
And that's when that was the big alarm bell where then I realized, okay, something's really wrong here. And that was the shifting point.
Yeah.
And that's when, instead of going to class, I was just looking on Craigslist for houses in the mountains because I was starting to question and look inside and be like, what do I want to do? What's going to bring me joy and happiness? And then I was like, I just want to live in a cabin in the woods.
Oh my God, that sounds so nice.
I know, right?
about now, actually. I'm like, let's do it.
It's like an always dream.
Oh, yeah, it's an always dream.
Totally.
It's going to happen.
Yep.
My friend, it will happen.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to make it happen.
Well, and so I did make it happen. I had one friend who was smart enough not to go to college. And he and I just started bonding so deeply. And of course, we love smoking weed at that age.
Of course.
And we wanted to grow it. So
Not
we're like,
only at that age. Anyway, sorry.
oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So we're like, well, let's get a cabin in the woods. Like, I was like, Daniel, do you want to move into a cabin in the woods with me? He's like, yeah, we could grow weed and just like do the life out of society thing.
I love how you just like abstractly life out of society thing.
Yeah.
Just
out,
like that thing.
Out the box.
Out the
and
box.
into a little log box. Oh, man. So it was so lovely to take that step out of the norm and pursue connection with a best friend and pursue what I love. And so that was the same time that I started working with kids. So that's when I started teaching piano, playing music professionally, and teaching gymnastics. Actually, it made me feel like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde because I had this nightlife where I was playing music
Oh, right,
with all
right.
these bands professionally.
Right.
So, you know, I'm up till like 3 a.m.
Totally. Smoking
And then-
weed, drinking, doing all the
Yeah,
things.
exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
And then
you're
like, fortunately, since I was coaching gymnastics, I didn't have to teach in a school or anything.
Oh,
So I
nice.
could sleep in.
Oh, nice.
But then it was like, then I work with kids by day and
yeah, just
play music by
totally.
night. And actually, I just realized that when I really knew that I loved working with kids was back when I was a 5th grader. Because my next door neighbor owned a daycare. And I had free time for whatever reason as a 5th grader. She's like, do you want to like volunteer here? Because it's next door. And it was just it's so wholesome. And it was so fun for me. And it's like, that's, as I said, that's the time when I started having the weight of societal norms conditioned into me. But when you're with that young of an age group and with a next door neighbor who's like a mom, it's just like a free space to be yourself and just play and be with that precious early childhood.
Purity.
Exactly.
Innocence.
Exactly.
Oh, that's open.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. And I just
love that.
remember it was like a tangible feeling.
Yeah.
That wholesomeness, you
This
know?
is how I feel when I sit with you. This is how I feel when I was with Jenna and Audrey and Janet last night. It's like, I think I'm craving more and more in my life. Sorry for the side tangent, but like I really
No, it's beautiful.
want to spend my time with people that make me feel whole, that don't make me feel like I have to second guess what I say, that don't make me feel like I'm worried this information, this really vulnerable information I'm sharing could be held against me. Like I want to feel either fully supported and you know, obviously friends hold you accountable, but just like safe or I'd rather be alone. And I love how you find that beauty in children. And you're absolutely right about their energy being that pure. And I will also say it is a gift and a talent that you have to be able to readily connect with that so easily. And I have a feeling that it has to do with the fact that you are able to connect with that within yourself. Because adults are, you know, supposed to be this and that and the other and have our shit together and talk in certain ways and act in certain ways. And we're so responsible that it takes kind of like shedding some layers to be able to like tap into that and then see that in them and be like, wow, how precious.
I love that you just brought that up. And it's so true. Like, what that brings up for me is that I have always, maybe part of the gift is that I've always tried to stay connected with my inner child. And maybe it is that connection that led me to the courage to reopen to my authentic self and my vulnerability, you know? Because I knew that and I held on to that from childhood. And I was lucky enough to grow up with, I mean, we all have varying degrees of childhood trauma, but relative to what people experience in the world, I was so fortunate in the situation that I grew up in to have just unconditionally loving parents. And yeah, a childhood where they supported me in pursuing gymnastics and piano and all these things. So I think that is a really interesting concept about the inner child, because if the wounding is what happens when we're kids, that is what causes us to cut off our vulnerability, then it is in so many ways the courage to open to our inner child that is the most courageous thing adults can do.
So perfectly put and so true to how I feel, and yet so ironic, right? Adults
Exactly.
are running around trying to act like adults,
Uh-huh.
and then the most courageous thing they could freaking possibly do is actually be like, I am hurt. I want love. I want unconditional love. I want to belong. The quick thought that I had as you were speaking.
Okay.
Because you said if the child, the inner child, if that is where the hurt happened, that's also where the healing happens. When you actually get to sit with them, have the courage, as you said, to be there with them and for them, envisioning that child in you and being with it, which is you, and she is or he is still part of you, but allowing the feelings that that child never processed, that that child never felt free to express, the fears that that child actually never let go, the hurt that that child never healed. Now to say, we can still do that. We can still heal that when we are
Absolutely.
with them.
Absolutely. Yeah, it reminds me actually, I feel like what we're saying is the exact sentiment, and I'm not religious, as you know, but
Yes.
highly spiritual. Even to use that word, I don't know. But regardless, it reminds me of Jesus saying, let them be like little children,
Yes.
you know?
Yes.
And yeah, this this concept has been really settling in as a gnosis for me in the last year or two. And it continues to blow my mind because I feel so much like a kid in a 33-year-old body, you know? And I just keep coming back to, but this is who I am. Like all of these masks and ideas of like, oh, I need to talk with a deep voice, and I need to have my shit together in an orderly schedule and make money. And I'm at an age where I should, you know, be dating more regularly and thinking about a family and a house and a mortgage and blah, blah, blah. You know, all of that doesn't even like resonate remotely to who I am as an authentic human. I'm just a kid. I want to be out in nature. I want to have fun. I want to connect with my friends. I want to create art and beauty, you know?
Creative
That's the world.
expression, movement,
Yeah.
creative expression, movement.
Movement, creative expression,
those
movement.
are the 2 words that also, oh my God, I keep referring to this awesome therapy session I had the other day, but creative expression and movement, those were 2 words that came up for me during that session internally. So I'm in this meditative state, and my therapist started doing that thing where he kind of like talks for me. And he said, or like, you know, for me or to my inner child or whatever you want to say. And he was just like, we have our own ways. We have our own ways. That's okay. There are the ways with the mortgage and the kids and the houses, and it's okay. I'm good. I have my own way. We have our own ways. And when you're saying we, when he was saying we and I was thinking we, I'm thinking about me and all my little Isabels just like lining up, like we have our own ways. And not only that, he helped me actually like see them. Because a lot of times you're just like, I'm just a loser. I'm literally quote unquote in my head doing nothing with my life. But he actually became specific. And one of the things that he said is creative expression is so important to you, whether it is through dance or climbing or dancing around a fire or doing a podcast, whatever that is, connecting with humans and your closest friends. But creative expression, and obviously for you and I, very big, is movement. As long as I'm not doing harm to anyone else, I get to be me.
What a beautiful sentiment.
Thanks.
Yeah, that's one for the world to live by. As long as I'm not doing harm to anybody, I get to be me.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, I know, and it's we're such diverse humans. I'm not saying that any other man or human out there is gonna feel like as much of a kid as I do in my authentic self, but because I'm me. I don't know how everybody else is. So it's once again, it's like it's not about a definition of. You have to take away all the definitions.
Right, that's the
in
thing.
order for us to discover who we want to be. I was thinking like, maybe, it's because what you said about the voice of don't be a kid, or like how we judge, like you're being like a kid. Maybe it's the weight of that unconscious voice that is why I am like so profoundly in awe of this experience that I'm grokking. Which that's a term for anybody that's read Stranger in a Strange Land. It means like to understand really fully,
okay.
like a deep gnosis.
Thanks for clarifying.
Yeah, I love to say grok, but then people are like, look at me funny.
Including myself.
Yep. But yeah, I think maybe that voice is the reason that it's been so profound for me to be like, wait, the most courageous thing, the thing that makes me the most manly, as in meeting, like, if there is to me, like a definition, it's not even manly. I don't know, just a beautiful quality that humans ought to embody to make the world a better place, because change starts with ourself, not with trying to change everything around us, is to be, for me, a kid. That's the most adult thing I can do, because that's what still the most scary. Despite a lifetime of staying connected with my inner child, the wounding, we peel the layers, and they're not just gone.
It is so ironic. It's like the most quote unquote adult thing to do is to be a child and to tap into that and to actually be that vulnerable and be that honest. And I will say the men that I am attracted to, not just as, like partners or sexual partners, but also as friends, the men that I am attracted to, that I like to be close
like
to,
me.
like you, they have that quality of being able to be a child, being comfortable in their own skin, not feeling the need to prove anything to me, not feeling the need to show me, oh, I'm such a strong climber, or I make so much money, or anything like this. Those are the ones that I'm like, oh, I love your energy. I'm so attracted to that. It's my husband Pata, he's so comfortable with himself. He has nothing to prove to anyone. And, when people start talking about all the grades they climbed and all the things that they've done, he treats everyone equally as long as they're nice and kind human beings, and that's how he holds them himself. And I feel that this is something that you do as well, as far as just like, really showing up in this world. And I find that so attractive. I find that so much more attractive than the quote unquote manly thing, the other manly thing. Like here's how much I've got. Here, look at me. And I
hate to admit it to you, but I've just been trying to prove myself to you this whole time.
Right,
this whole thing is a facade.
It's a facade. I don't really care about children. So anyway, tell me more about this exciting new business.
This business that I just started with another beautiful man doing this work and on this path is a young man's rite of passage group. We call it the Next Generation of Men Tribe. And somebody was like, you shouldn't use the word tribe because it's like cultural appropriation or something. But then we're thinking about, okay, like calling it a group, that doesn't feel right. Calling it a gang or community.
No, gang, no.
Like it didn't feel right. And we're like, we get that. And maybe we can start letting go of the past and redefine words. Because though I live in America, I'm not out, enslaving and people and causing genocide and destruction, I am actively working to make the world a better place, a connected place where we are all safe to be ourselves and love one another,
Right.
Despite all of these ridiculous divisions. Mm-hmm. So anyways, so that was a little tangent, but we decided to call it the Next Generation of Men Tribe. And what we're doing is very much related to this concept of the wounding that Garrett, who's the man that I'm doing this with, and I experienced growing up. And all the pain that we have had to face as a result of that. And the desire to help the younger generation not have to go through those same pains and live with the same feelings of fear and inadequacy and confusion and just like an inability to be yourself and to not know that it's okay to be vulnerable and it's okay to be unique.
That is so beautiful. As you speak, my heart is softening and warming. I'm thinking, wow, if I would have had two mentors, female mentors, guiding me through some of the stuff that I've gone through as far as like, fear, vulnerability, being bullied, whatever those things that happen in grade school and high school, how nice that would have been to have this comforting, because as you were speaking, I was watching your body language, and listeners can't see you, but you're this like really tall, strong, athletic human being, but then you have this like super kind, tender air around you, and to have somebody to look up to, I can only imagine for these young men to like be able to turn to somebody who is so admirable, and for sure they hold you up on this pedestal, and at the same time he's so approachable and so kind and so there, so readily there. And that is something that now that I'm hearing you talk, I'm like, every gender should have this opportunity, and I hope that all sorts of groups like this pop up, because I would have loved to have had that support system. And I'm just so thrilled to hear that that's what you're doing. And I would love to hear more about maybe some technicalities or just like methods and plans that you have, because it just sounds so cool.
Yeah, it's profound, and we're just getting started. But I feel a reinstilled sense of just excitement and passion, like I felt when I joined Ascendance. It's like, it's rare in life that we actually get so excited and amped up about something that we're doing.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Especially in the drag of the modern adult life. So, wow, it feels so good. I couldn't believe it the first day. I woke up hours beforehand and I was so excited for it.
Wow.
And then the first meeting happened, and I was 10 times more excited afterwards. Garrett and I we're getting full body tingles. We're like, oh my God, we're actually doing this. And I wanted to say that I completely agree. We're doing this because we wanted it. We never got this.
Right.
So we want to offer that which we never had. And the other word that was coming up while you were speaking was something you said earlier, is aloneness. Like feeling so isolated. With our immense inner worlds, every human has just so much going on in their inner world. And if we don't have people to turn to, people that we actually trust and feel safe with, how can we navigate that alone, especially as kids, And I mean, therapy is amazing. I'm so glad that I started opening to therapy as an adult. It's a game changer, but still my best therapist is one that's my best friend.
Right.
It's not somebody that I'm like paying, it's in this professional guise. No, it's like there's something different. Like speaking with you, I feel like all of our time together, it's always therapeutic for me.
Same.
That's what a true friendship can be. So we're hoping to cultivate, our intention is to cultivate that amongst these young men and to offer them a space where they don't have to feel so isolated with all the things that they're processing, from everything they're dealing with at school and family life to, at that age, you're going through the incredible transition of puberty,
right.
Very uncomfortable transition. Sexuality is arising. That was huge for me because around that age, I realized that I was bisexual.
Right.
And I didn't even know that you could be bisexual. I thought it was one or the other. So I felt like a freak. Actually, the amount of times having been a gymnast and just a shining light, I'm not saying that in an egoic way, but like people feel my heart.
Right.
There's a resonance to people that are spiritually attuned, and you can feel somebody's essence. And when people shine, there's a lot of darkness out there that wants to pull down the shining people. So being a shining young person, the amount of times that I was bullied and called gay and tried to, these kids trying to knock me down was immense.
Yeah.
And so confusing. And so that led me to think being gay is this horrible thing. not to mention this era has changed immensely, thank God. But it's still, that message is out there. And working with these young people, most of them are still terrified to come out if they're gay, you know?
Oh, that just makes me feel heavy. I'd imagine that one of the most important methods and just practices in this group is simply the act of speaking your truth and being honest without fear. To be able to be honest, to share what is actually going down deep down inside and what you're feeling and what you're experiencing, that in and of itself is so healing. Like you said, it's not just the therapy, it's like sitting with your closest friends. I mean, last night with like Jenna and Audrey and Janet, the conversations went everywhere. Safe feelings all around us. You know, we're like exchanging our deepest fears or deepest frustrations with ex-boyfriends, partners, anything, work, it doesn't matter. And it's so beautiful to have that. And I feel so, so lucky in my life to have that support system. Those are the people, including you, that actually feel like family to me. And that's something I was going to say earlier. Maybe tribe is not my word. The people that I really, really feel close and safe with are these friends that now feel family to me. And that's what I want to see them as.
Yep. That's the kind of thing that we get to say to these young men is, you guys, this is a space where we get to be a family. Like literally, this is where we don't have to feel alone. Anything and everything is open for discussion. This is a place of non-judgment, respect, confidentiality, but more than anything, like brotherhood, connecting and feeling like you are supported. Like you have, just like you feel with your sisters from last night, that we have each other's back.
Yeah.
And that's my definition of family. And I think it's a fascinating point too. I was just thinking about this the other day of how it comes back to that isolation piece. Like somehow, I mean, it seems crazy once you begin to do the work or to like be vulnerable with other people and experience other people's vulnerability, that everybody is experiencing immense amounts of inner turmoil. Like this is what it is to be human.
Yeah.
Everybody has so many anxieties and fears and doubts and worries, and how many of us seek the help?
Yeah.
Or open up to share those.
Yeah.
Like if we spent the amount of time if we spent half of the amount of time seeking help or speaking those out loud as the voices in our head that are like, I wonder what they think of me, or like, are they feeling this? They seem to have their shit together. Like that monkey mind is going for all of us all the time. You know, even I just love the spiritual teachers that talk about how as you become awakened, it's not like the monkey mind just disappears. No, it's like meditation. You learn to see them and not lose your power to them.
Right.
But what they are wounds calling out. So when we share what the monkey mind wants, we're bringing attention to it in another human's love, and it helps quiet it. It's honestly like, I feel like community and sharing is probably more powerful than meditation.
One thing that I would love to ask again about is, you know, we talked a little bit about the methods and the, I don't want to call it exercises, but the things that you will do with these young men. And I also wanted to go back to one thing that you have throughout this episode talked about, which is courage. That actually being vulnerable is courage. And that's something that I feel like in my life has always been sort of an important reminder. And yeah, I just wanted you to touch on that a little bit, especially in this context of your company.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. I'm actually really glad you brought that back up. Because earlier you had mentioned that, you know, it was just a quick passing thing that you said, but that these young men can speak anything that's on their mind without fear. And really that's not the case, because the things that the safe space that we are offering them, it's intentionally called a safe space so that we can courageously speak about things that we're afraid to speak about.
Right.
So there's probably not going to be fearlessness when speaking about them. And it'll be amazing to see as we continue this work, the diversity of experiences that these young men open up and speak about.
Right.
You know, because these are all the things that are being held back. And most of us adults have masked them over.
Right.
So yeah, the concept behind courage, it's actually one of the first activities that we did with the young men was we created this whole obstacle course where they had to work as a team to get across like a lava course. And then they had to pass each other over. They had to like basically use physical touch to get themselves over the next section.
Cool.
And then they had to learn to ask for help and work together to get to the top of a tree where we'd put a bag.
Yeah.
And in that bag, we told them overcoming this is like your initial challenge to really earn your way into this group. And we very specifically tried to incorporate lessons that they could actively embody that we hope to instill in them.
That's beautiful.
Yep. So teamwork, asking for help.
Physical touch.
Yep. The capacity to communicate and collaborate
Ask
without
for help.
Yeah, and
we were just talking about that
exactly.
so much. Yeah.
Exactly. So anyways, at the top of the tree, when they finally completed it, they got this little card, and on the card is sort of our code of honor, like the way that we will be together and how we create. It's basically like outlines the structure so that the kids understand why it's a safe space and how we treat each other and how we listen from our hearts and we don't interrupt and we don't give each other advice that's unasked for. You know, it's a space more for listening. And then on the other side, we have a bunch of virtues. So two of those virtues are integrity. And we think that one's really important because we as humans, when we mask ourselves over, then we are often lying and we're not living by our truth. And if we're not living in alignment with our truth, then our thoughts, words, and actions are probably not in alignment, and therefore we are not in integrity.
Amen to that.
Yeah. Another one is humanity. So just developing the capacity to listen, to have empathy and compassion. Very important.
Very important.
And then that brings me to courage. And in our definition of courage, it is not fearlessness, but it is the willingness to act in the face of fear. Like, despite feeling fear, you still choose to act.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's our definition of courage.
I love that definition. I want that card. Will you make me a copy?
Yeah, it's really good.
I just
have
need
it on
that
me.
reminder. I really need the integrity reminder too, because that has been something over the years I struggle with. And in psychology, they call it incongruency of actions and thoughts. So basically, as you said, when one thing is not in line with the other, like your thoughts and what you actually speak and your actions versus your feelings, or just something is not, not on, how it just creates this psychological, like struggle, like turmoil within you, because you deep down inside know things are not congruent.
Right.
Even
Yep.
though maybe you're not super aware of it in the moment, especially when you're younger, but
Mm-hmm.
So I really love that is on there, the integrity one. And I think all of them are equally important. And I want a copy of the card. What a beautiful way to finish that little obstacle course. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really unique.
Yeah, it was
That's
really cool.
unique. Yeah.
And since we're doing so much work outside, it's the size of a business card and
Perfect.
laminated.
So you can just have it.
Yeah, so they each
Yes.
are expected to keep that on them when they come.
I love that.
Yep.
I love that.
And that way we can reference it and
Yeah.
it's a way that we can hold each other accountable to
Right.
staying true to our virtues
Hey, let's
and
remember.
our code of honor. Yep. So, and one other thing that I wanted to talk about is just actually from this video that I shared with you this morning. Two words really stood out to me in this. And they are community and communication. And I'm tying this back into when we were talking about like this whole concept of vulnerability and speaking and feeling safe with your friends, and how if we can do that and really get real and honest, then that's where so much of this healing happens, right? That's where we illuminate the monkey mind. And that happens through communication. But that can happen through meditation. But for me, on the beginning of my spiritual journey, it was very much alone. And I was still isolated, and I was still afraid to open up. So much of my real growth has come in having the courage to do this in front of other people. Because I could go out in the woods and feel like my free self, but then I'd come back into society and I'd be like, why are these patterns coming back up? Why am I succumbing to this? Yeah, I had great reluctance and still continue to at many times to do this with people. And with being a sensitive and heart-driven human as my priority, I still, as hard as it is to admit, like it's hard for me to trust people. And I wish I did, because it is that breaking open and being vulnerable where like that's where real connection happens. That's true to me. That's true intimacy. Mm-hmm. But I just feel like I have that with so few humans, and so that's why we're doing this with the young men. So hopefully they can feel intimacy and connection with humanity.
Absolutely. And I will say, along with what you just mentioned, is it's more quality than quantity. And I would love to walk around and be able to trust everyone and be open-hearted all the time. And I think there is a certain aspect of this where the goal is to, not close your heart, because the energetic closing is like really what brings pain and trauma, and not releasing the emotion. And at the same time, and this is a whole nother episode, is like learning to trust, learning when to trust and when to open and when to maybe just be a little careful and set some energetic boundaries, because I've also gotten so hurt by oversharing with somebody who took that information and literally used it to hurt my feelings. At a young age, as a teenager, as an adult. I mean, last summer, I shared information with somebody and that person blurted it out at the fire, just like boom, to make me feel shitty because she was upset at me. And I'm like, are we really back in high school? And then it's like, no, actually, I don't want to trust everybody. Unfortunately, I cannot trust everybody, you know? And that's why I think those groups and, our friendship and my friendship with my girl family, my sisters last night, those are the ones where I can feel safe, where I know this is a safe space. And I agree with you. There's less and less of them as I get older, but I appreciate those so much more.
Yeah, I love that. And it's so true. We have to have discernment. Like we can't just walk around. It's not realistic to walk around always fully open. Like I'm just my authentic self at all times. No, like we'd probably end up getting very wounded. But I also agree with your therapist. Like, what a beautiful challenge too.
Yep, absolutely.
To accept people as they are and find that strength within, to not let people's words and actions get inside so much.
Yeah, I agree with you, and that is definitely some work in progress for me.
Yeah.
And I don't like when people say the term grow thicker skin, because I don't think that's really the thing that I'm going for, but it's more, and maybe that works for some people, but it's more of like, bouncing away energetically things, like you said, not letting it go too deep inside, and seeing like the beauty of the growth and the lessons rather than the damage or what went wrong or what you regret saying or doing.
Totally. And that actually just makes me think about like many of these narratives about what it means to be a man and grow thicker skin. Like that's something men hear all the time.
I know, that's why I think I don't like it, because it feels like harden yourself.
It is. It's harden your heart. But what I found, one of my profound realizations of like when I was feeling like, I don't know what my life purpose is. And then I was feeling an immense amount of pain, and I was realizing how much I was opening my capacity to just cry, which is really vulnerable as a man. It's very scary at first.
Absolutely.
But crying is like the most healing thing. And what came to me in this realization was like, if there's one thing that I can offer the earth, it's that I will be a man who cries. And what could be more powerful than crying when somebody hurts you, than instead of being like, fuck you, I can't believe you did that. What are we in high school? Or, if we battle, we're meeting fire with fire.
That.
But if we let the pain into our heart and then just like show that.
What are powerful changes of perspective. Chris, it has been such an honor and so fun. And I appreciate your vulnerability also around, sharing with me that you were nervous. And I know that the people that I've had millions of conversations with, who are the ones that I'm actually inviting to talk to me with, all have that same sentiment, because they're like, now we're recording what we usually do so naturally. Strange. And I just appreciate you sharing that. And I just want to say it has been such an honor and a pleasure. And honestly, I just enjoyed it just as much, if not more in some ways, because it was being recorded. And I'm like, this is something that we will always, even us, get to refer to. So that's kind of cool. And I know it's not as flowy and natural, but it did feel really natural. And I just love sitting with you as always. I love you so much. And thank you so, so much for being here with me today.
Thank you, Isabel. Yeah, this was so fun. What a joy. And I love what you are creating here. And I know people are going to listen. And it's beautiful.
Thank you.
And this, just you are just such an authentic, beautiful being. And that is going to touch people straight up.
Thank you, Chris.
So it's
I appreciate
I'm so
it.
excited. Like we got to do it finally.
I know, and I'm also so excited for your company and see where that goes. And we'll have follow-up episodes, the two of us. Don't worry, we will be back.
We'll be back.
Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. And please feel free to send questions, comments, and topics you would like to hear about to Isabel@kegelsandcoffee.com. That is ISABEL at kegelsandcoffee.com, or you can find me on Instagram under Kegels and Coffee. Take good care, stay tuned, and remember, when in doubt, drink coffee or do Kegels.